Hey everyone, I'm a retired Navy SEAL.
Hey, and I'm not a hippie.
Yeah, hey everyone. I know that's a weird start, but did you know that I used to call Will a hippie? And not only that, in our early days of the show even started with a voiceover that called Will a hippie. And then come to find out, many moons later, he didn't even like that term. And turns out there's actually times I'm more hippie than Will.
And this is just, I know, my God, there's so much history here. This is just some of the fun things that we're going to go along with, that we're going to discover today. So stay tuned for more about what makes Men Talking Mindfulness tick and all the glitches that make us tick.
More glitches than ticks sometimes.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
Hey everyone, again, welcome back to Men Talking Mindfulness. I'm John, the retired Navy SEAL who has traded in my combat boots for meditation pillows.
Hey, and I'm Will, the non-hippie meditation teacher who somehow ended up co-hosting this wild ride with this dude over there, John McCaskill. Hey, today we're going to take you back to where it all began and how we got to where we are today. What's next, John?
Yeah, well, what are we gonna cover? We're gonna cover what you're gonna get out of this. Real quick, we're gonna cover what you're gonna get out of this origin story episode, right? Which actually, now I see that we actually changed to the wrong freaking screen here. We're back to our Doty episode, but I'll take us back to the two people there. Like I said, hey, more glitches than ticks sometimes. But hey, what are you guys gonna get out of this? You're gonna get some behind the scenes chaos. I mean, Will and I, more often than not, we have a green screen behind us. It's all nice and formal. Today, I'm sitting on a recliner and I'm rocking back and forth. You can kind of see it happening, but you're going to see some of the behind the scenes chaos that has happened since the beginning of the show, some of the unpredictable moments that we've gone through, and what shaped our early days of the podcast to what brought us to today. Will, what else?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to share our personal stories. Hopefully you get to know us a little bit better. We get to share our unique backgrounds and how the heck the two dudes with seemingly very drastically and dramatically different backgrounds get together. For this craziness that we call Men Talking Mindfulness. It's something that we've just absolutely loved doing, and we love all of you listening. And it turns out, we're not all that different. We're actually become really great friends. And right. I love John like a brother. And it's been incredible. Thank you. It's been incredible to grow a business with this man and really affecting the lives of other people.
A business, man. Who knew when this started that we'd actually be an actual standalone entity? So I've got my own business. Will's got his own business. And then together we have Men Talking Mindfulness, just officially became a business earlier this year. But we're also going to be talking about authentic connection, right? We want to talk about the challenges and triumphs of collaborating together and embracing feedback from one another, right? I ask Will, how did we do on the show? And we talk about that and vice versa. And then we get feedback from our audience, some of which we're going to talk about today. And then we try to stay true to our kind of unfiltered, unapologetic selves. I mean, we screw up all the time on this show, and we just roll with the punches. Like I said, like if you're watching this, you'll see what I talked about before. It rolled from the swirl intro to a 3-man or a 3-person window rather than the two of us. Hey, because sometimes I'm not a tech genius and sometimes I screw that up. But anyway, authentic connection, more importantly.
Yeah. And, we're also going to, hey, if you're interested and maybe want to look into direction of starting your own podcast, we're going to talk about the ups and downs of podcasting. And, again, it's been a real fun ride. We're also going to talk about, what's it take to get into the practice of mindfulness, and also what, got us into mindfulness and how it all kind of is working for us and how we continually practice. And we're also going to share our vision for the future and with our Million Man Mindfulness Movement. That's already happening. It's already underway. And if you're listening, then you're already part of that movement. So, hey, just real quick before, just a couple announcements. Hey, if you really want to dig a little bit deeper and connect to us and check out what is happening on Men Talking Mindfulness, you just simply text MTM to 33777 or head to mentalkingmindfulness.com. In the fall this year, we have 2 separate live virtual 9-week meditation courses starting this fall. One is going to be on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern time, starting on September 10th, and it's going to run 9 straight weeks. And the second course is going to be on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern time, which is going to begin October 6th. So check out mentalkingmindfulness.com to get all those details, or send me an email at will@mentalkingmindfulness.com, and I can sort that out for you. So let's just do our one breath grounding practice. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, how this came to be. But this is a great way just to remind you that you have the ability to breathe. And with that ability to breathe and take control of your breath, you can take control of your attention, taking control of your intention, and maybe just need to calm the fuck down right now. And that's another thing that this breathing practice does for us, because John and I do this not just for our audience and to ground ourselves, but we really have found how important it is to do it for ourselves, so we have a better podcast because we have cooler heads prevail. All right.
That's right.
Exhale out, everybody. Exhale. Drop into your feet and into your seat as you exhale. And now let's take a big, giant, biggest breath of the day. Fill it all the way up through the nose. A little bit more. Let's just top it off. One little sip through the nose. Hold that breath for 3, for 2, 1, and exhale out easy, smooth. Let it flow. Let it go. Drop a little bit deeper. And all right, John. Let's rock and roll with this.
Start rapping, man. Yeah. So, I thought just real quick, we could jump into a little touch on the show and then get into our own individual histories. And I know we've had episodes on getting to know Will better, getting to know John better, but maybe for some new audience members, new community members, let's just touch a little bit on our backgrounds. But let's that the show used to, it said basically, what happens when a retired Navy SEAL and a hippie meditation get together to talk about mindfulness, and then it went from there. And really, even the two of us didn't know where things were going to go. And we developed this tagline of raw, uncut, and unapologetic. And we've had our brief, or rather our challenges in the beginning, which we'll get into here. But I mean, they range from, recording this show on phones to completely chaotic backgrounds. And now we try to record in our kind of like homemade studios. So it's a lot different to having completely unpredictable Wi-Fi and some other craziness happening, which we'll talk about here shortly. But I thought maybe a good place to start would be, let's tell people who we are. Why the hell should they be listening to us? Maybe they'll be able to relate better to us.
I remember when we came up with raw, uncut, unapologetic. You sent me an email, and we were kind of talking about how we're going to introduce the show. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And I think you had, because we were just going to talk about going live and how it's going to be raw or whatever. And you had uncut in there because it's unedited. And I was like, oh, how about unapologetic? Like, fuck it, man. Like, we're going after this. And here we are. And it really has become a tagline for us. And it's like, honestly, just been such a pleasure to produce in this way, because what we're finding as we continually do the show, and what makes it successful, is the rawness, which brings up authenticity and and the uncut, which brings up more vulnerability, and the unapologetic nature of just saying fuck it and just diving in and just believing what we're doing, but also catching each other when we fall, which has been so beautiful. And really, it's true.
Which actually, that's a perfect segue. I want to come to you next in a second, but that lines up. We wanted to talk about some reviews, and one in particular that we just recently gotten, just a couple weeks back, and it's from a woman. Right, our show is Men Talking Mindfulness, and we talk about what we do for men, but what we're doing for men is also for women. A lot of what we talk about is for women directly as well, but when we talk to men and how to improve men's lives, we're obviously indirectly also affecting women. So this one particular review, it comes from Squeals. So thank you, Squeals.
There we go.
Review.
That's interesting.
And it's as a woman, I wasn't sure if this podcast was for me. I couldn't be more wrong. It's refreshing to hear two men talking about mindfulness and the human emotional experience from the point of view of heterosexual masculinity. John and Will are key instigators for the revolution of American men. And revolution has the R in parentheses. So it's evolution and revolution of American men. I love that. And it says, I can't speak for all women, but let me thank you on our behalf anyway. I am learning and growing along with the men. So, hey, if you're a woman out there and you're tuning in, this show could help you out too. This Men Talking Mindfulness show, it actually originally started, it was called Men Talking Mindfulness because it was truly two men talking about mindfulness. And then somewhere along the way, we decided, you know what, let's make this show kind of for men. But just because it's for men doesn't mean that women can't get something out of it. So
everybody can. Everybody can. Yeah, I'm not gonna, how about this, John? I'm gonna talk a little bit about my background, but we also have episodes. Like we have 2 episodes that we'll put in the show notes here that you were interviewed by Clark. I was interviewed by Clark. He's been like a 3-time guest on our show. So we'll definitely put that in the show notes where you can really dive in and hear like 45 minutes of John or I being questioned. But yeah, what's up?
Raw, uncut, unapologetic. I was looking at our episode ratings the other day. I don't know what happened to that episode. I'm sure we have it in our files, but it's not on our podcast anymore. But that's neither here nor there. I'll go back and find it. Yeah, it's not there. I'm not sure what happened to it.
Yours or both of them?
No, yours is there. Mine is not. So I think you went in there and you deleted mine sometime. I'm just kidding. I'm sure. I'm just kidding, man. I'm sure. I'm sure something happened. But anyway, I will go back and re-upload that so you don't have to.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened, but
I'm sure it was like I mess around with those episodes all the time. I'm sure it had something. But anyway.
Well, I really briefly, I love it. So yeah, I'm Will Schneider. William Herbert Schneider is my birth name. I was born in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania back in 1972. I'm actually a Capricorn, born on the same day as Jesus, December 24th, no lie, right? I didn't realize, John, that we celebrate Christmas, but Christ is actually born on the 24th, and I was raised Catholic. I was like, I did not know that. It's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. It says something on the eve of Christmas, Jesus is born or something. Anyway, so I guess I'm like, whatever. I'm born on the 24th of December, so you take that as how you want, right? I have like an athletic background, and I love playing basketball. I was excelled in sports in high school. Went on to play basketball in college. Learned a lot of discipline, through playing in sports, and but also really got to know my body, which has really still helped me to this day because I really stay in good shape because I just feel great when I stay in good shape. So, and early on, after I got to college, with this biology degree I had, not really knowing who I was, definitely not knowing who I was, what I wanted to do. But the only thing I did know was I did not want to live in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. Nothing wrong with Hazleton. I love everyone there, but and it's a great area. I had a really lot of family growing up. We just actually had our 78th Schneider family reunion on Saturday, just a couple days ago. And it's been rocking on. Like this is I think, coming into our 7th generation of Schneiders that do this. It's fun, a lot of fun. So I have this strong family background that's really helped me to succeed, I feel, because we were just talking about, I was talking to somebody about that. It just gives me, I have a place to fall back to, or I have a place to go to. I have a whole family energy behind me that allows me to just be more fearless, be more courageous, be more unapologetic with my choices and just go after for what I want. So I left after I graduated. I got a pharmaceutical company. I worked for a pharmaceutical company in the lab. So I was a big science nerd working in, biopharmaceutical microbial fermentation, which was interesting. Hated it. I love all the people I work with again. I was like, what am I doing? This is a waste of my time. At the same time, and I was contemplating my next step, I fell in love, and then she broke up with me, and I was devastated, and really started making some changes through that. My worldview shattered in that moment, and when I started to put together who I wanted to be, I moved to New York City as an actor. And I started to pursue a creative life. That led me into yoga. That led me into meditation first because I really wanted to be more present on stage, more relaxed on camera, and it helped. And that led me to yoga. Again, just accessing the body, like I said earlier, was really important to me. And then that kind of yoga led me into teaching yoga. And teaching yoga led me into more corporate work that I've been doing, trying to take this off the mat get out, no stretch pants, no yoga mats, like in the conference room, helping people to understand, how these simple practices can really make a big difference in their way, in their day, I mean. And then, the pandemic hit. It shifted a lot of my thriving yoga business at the time. And John and I we started to talk just before the pandemic, and then here we are, Men Talking Mindfulness, and we're like 180 some episodes in 9 seasons, and we've had a tremendous impact with our audience, with our community, and we know that because they continually send us emails, direct messages, leave reviews about how this information that we put out every week is helping them at least look at their lives differently, or directly changing their lives in some way. Right. So here we are, John.
Yeah.
A little background.
Well, a little background on me. I was actually born in Cape Town, South Africa, and moved with my family. My parents brought myself, my 3 older sisters, and my younger brother to the States in 1984 when I was 7 years old. And my father brought us over here on a 1-year teaching visa. He was a professor at Louisiana Tech University as an architect. So Ruston, Louisiana. We were supposed to be here for a year. We ended up never going back. We got our green cards, became citizens, and when I coming back to the beginning of that transition from South Africa to America. For those who don't know, South Africa was still practicing segregation at the time, and that was by it was led by a white minority, which my family didn't agree with. That said, I went to school with all whites, right? And I come over from South Africa where, I'm in first grade, and all whites. Then I come to Ruston, Louisiana, and I'm going to school with all different colors. And I really, it was culture shock, but there wasn't anything wrong with it. At 7 years old, you kind of see everybody as the same. You haven't really developed any really deep sense of bias. But it was awesome. I actually really enjoyed it. That said, I was also made fun of by a lot of kids because kids are mean. I had a strong South African accent. Kids also don't know a lot, so they're like, "Oh, how did you get here? Did you get here on an elephant? Did you live, in a desert in a hut?" They made a lot of fun of me. And that lasted for several years until I finally lost my South African accent, which is kind of a shame now. But anyhow, I was athletic as well, and I say I was athletic. I wasn't athletic with ball sports. Like I played basketball until 9th grade, and then I quickly lost all sense of coordination, and I realized, ball sports are not my thing. I'm going to be a runner. So I ran track and cross country, and I was fairly successful in that. And that laid the foundation for my going into the military and ultimately becoming a Navy SEAL. Went through the Naval Academy to become a Navy SEAL. And I was at Navy SEAL training when 9/11 happened. And that really kind of solidified things for me that I'd gotten into something serious, right? I knew that the SEAL community was going to be heavily involved in the aftermath of that. That said, that led to one operation that I was involved in Afghanistan that caused me some serious downs, and that ultimately led me to seeking help. And long story short, the help came through mindfulness and meditation. So that really, when I started to look at what I wanted to do after the military, mindfulness and meditation kind of bubbled to the top of the list of what I wanted to do. And I started talking to a lot of other military folks about it. And that's where Will and I actually came together. We had a mutual friend, Scott Tucker. He was a West Point grad, and I don't hold that against him. Yes. Yeah. So Scott's been on the show, but Scott, I think he had gone to a retreat with you, Will.
Yeah, we did it all men. Actually, it was funny. We did an all men's retreat in Bermuda.
There you go.
And we just connected. He was a really, really great dude. We just connected over that, and then he saw John, a Navy SEAL is going to do mindfulness, then you must meet Will Schneider and keep going.
Yeah, and then we were introduced, and I was like, hey, it was at a time when I was doing some very heavy networking, trying to figure out who's who, what I should talk to, learn lessons about what the civilian world is going to look like. And I called Will, and we, hit it off instantly. And at the end of the conversation, so many of my networking conversations just end, and then I never talk to that person again. Well, at the end of the conversation, Will's like, "Hey, let's set up another call for next month," and we did. And I was like, "Okay, all right, let's carry on this conversation." And the next month we spoke again. And at the end of the call, Will's like, "When are we talking again?" I was like, "All right, this is awesome. This is actually fun." And what we were talking about wasn't necessarily networking. It was, hey, what are the challenges that you've had with mindfulness and meditation? What are some of the insights that you've had? What are some new practices that you found? These types of things. And I was really interested in learning from somebody who was, several years at least ahead of me in this mindfulness journey. And then, the challenge of the pandemic hit, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do again with mindfulness, because I knew that mindfulness and meditation was what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how I was going to bring it to people. And then I saw Will. I logged onto his Instagram a few times, and I think he had transitioned to doing yoga on Instagram Live, right?
Yeah,
And I wasn't really familiar. I
yeah.
wasn't really familiar with Instagram Live yet. I maybe watched a few, and then I saw Will was doing it, and then I saw Will's audience was starting to creep up. I'm like, "Hey, man, these calls that we have every month, why don't we just start having those calls on Instagram Live?" And that's kind of the initial spark, if you will.
Yeah.
I'll throw it back at you.
No, I remember being in my well, I was living in a 1-bedroom at the time, being in my living room, in New York City, in my little 1-bedroom apartment. And I just remember I was having this conversation, like, yeah, and you're like, what should we call it?
Yeah.
And I was like, Men Talking Mindfulness, and here we are, like, unbelievable. It's just like first, it just had a ring to it naturally. And we love the MTM. I remember that conversation, like, oh, I like the MTM that we have. It's like, kind of a balanced thing. John's a big, he's a huge math nerd, so he likes some nice balanced equation, I guess, if you want to look at MTM as a balanced equation. But yeah, and here we are. I mean, it's been such a blast. Man. We just literally are still feeling the excitement of just having Dr. James Doty on for a second time with his. I'm sure it's going to be another New York Times bestseller for him called Mind Magic. And so we've had, just by mentioning that, we've had some really wonderful guests on. New York Times bestsellers, like just really people that are doing some really great work in the world. Like I know we're putting great work in the world, but they're like at the numbers that they're hitting, and the people that are have read his first book, and I'm sure millions are going to read this book as well. But it's just nice to have to be helping people and have a platform that we can actually reach out to these people that seem like, for me, until the podcast, I'm like, oh my God, how can I get in a workshop with them? How can I call them? How can I email them? Now we have this like renowned, we're growing for sure. Popular podcast. We can almost reach out to anybody and they'll come on the show.
Right.
So it's awesome. It's really exciting.
It's been wild. I mean, if you told me when we first started on Instagram Live that we were going to have guests at all, I never would have thought we were going to have guests at all. And then the caliber of guests that we've had on the show has been, top notch. That said, I kind of want to go back real quick to, those Instagram Live episodes.
They were fun.
They were completely unplanned, spontaneous. Basically, we just jumped on as though we were like, "Hey, man, I'll talk to you next week," and then we jumped on a phone and just had a conversation for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 episodes. And then we're like, you know what, maybe we should put some structure to this. But really it was just back and forth having fun. I remember very clearly, I was in Norfolk, Virginia at the time, and working out of an office there, and they were outside taking down a monument because this monument was erected to somebody from the Civil War, specifically on the Confederate side. And that was, a time that they were doing that. And I think we had an episode about that very thing because it was happening outside my window. I'm like, let's talk about this. So really, there wasn't a whole lot of clear roadmap at the time. And then also on top of that lack of clear roadmap, we had all sorts of chaos happen and hiccups along the way before we really started getting into the nice studios, nice recording, better recording equipment. I just held up a more professional mic, and this is my travel version. My one that at the office is much nicer, and Will's got his nice one. We've got our headphones, we've got sound absorbing stuff. But anyway, I mean, back then I remember I recorded several episodes on my iPhone sitting in my little Fiat, like little yellow car. And I was sitting outside a Starbucks bumming off their Wi-Fi because I just moved to Colorado and my cell service sucked. So I'd go sit outside Starbucks and bum off their Wi-Fi. And then my phone would die because it got too hot. And then poor Will was left there holding the mic, right, and had to carry on until my phone finally cooled off, and then I was able to jump back on. And then there was another time that I was like, okay, well, my phone has been heating up, so let me take my computer, and I set my computer on top of my steering wheel and sat there outside of Starbucks. And then another one, I did it outside or in my RV while my family was walking through the RV. My dog Zinnia, who Will loves, she made a little cameo appearance on the show. So we've had some, family interruptions, Wi-Fi from Starbucks, overheating phones, all sorts of craziness.
Oh, I had, we had Stephen Kotler on, and it was around this time of year, I think 2 years ago, and my computer just went out. It was so hot, it was overheated, and I got an ice pack from the freezer, and put it on my computer. It was back on in like 3 minutes.
Yeah, and that's right. That's the caliber of guests that we've had on the show, but also the caliber of chaos that we've had on the show, right? Doesn't matter, right?
Raw, uncut, unapologetic.
Yeah. Our first episode with Jim Doty, I was doing out of a hotel room, and I had shitty Wi-Fi, so I had to turn my camera off, and then his sound was not great. The message he put out was fantastic, but his sound wasn't great. This one coming out next week that we just recorded with him was much better. Video, audio, it's going to blow you guys away. So we're very excited to share that next week. But anyway, that's kind of the where we went. And then at some point, we're like, you know what? These Instagram lives, they're fun and all, but all 6 people who are watching, we're like, hey, maybe we can expand the audience. And we found a way to actually rip the audio off of Instagram. And I had been doing a podcast for a nonprofit that I was working with called Veterans Path. And I said, you know what, we can turn this into a podcast. And so we took the audio. Again, if you go back and listen to our first few episodes, you'll realize where raw, uncut, and unapologetic truly came from, because the audio was Instagram Live with two dudes holding phones up. Anyway, we ripped those off and realized, okay, more of our audience is on the podcast platform. Let's do that. And then from there, we're like, you know what else can we do? We can do video. So we started putting video out on YouTube and LinkedIn Live, and we'll talk about, the ups and downs of going live here in a second. But this whole thing, kind of like that review that I read before, it has been an evolution and continues to be. We're learning all the time. We're tinkering with the show all the time. The tech changes. We're just having fun.
Yeah, it's also not even like, I mean, and that's the one thing that I think that really helps us to bond really closely, John. And I think that bonding of, we've been, just like you said, our origin story starts with a phone call. I didn't know you. I didn't meet you. It wasn't until 2 years later, that actually physically met in Costa Rica, getting ready to like trip balls on psilocybin, with Beckley Retreats, which is awesome. We have 3 episodes on that, and I think really phenomenal. It was great to meet you. We met Chris Irwin there. I got to meet Neil in person finally. We took Matt Greenhouse, who's been on the show as well. Shout out to my boy Matt Greenhouse. But like, it's not just the growth of and trying to continually enhance the show's quality itself, but in enhancing the quality of our own character by continually practicing. Like we read all these great books, like this Mind Magic was just phenomenal book. And now I have like a whole nother set of skills that I can begin to bring and manifest and practice. I mean, to manifest.
Right.
And I have my book, my Men Talking Mindfulness bookcase over here, and I've learned something from every single one of these books, and it's helped me, to be a better person, to be a better family man, to be, just to be a better teacher. It helps me be better with myself, because we just don't, talk the talk, we walk the walk. And we put tape over our mouth, we're like, we're wearing whoops together,
Well, hold on.
yeah.
Why are we putting tape over our mouths? Right. We're
Well, we
putting
had
tape over our
James Nest.
mouths
Yeah.
to
For a
sleep
specific reason,
better.
we had James Nestor. We had another New York Times bestseller on the show,
Yeah.
James Nestor, with his book Breath. This guy's been on Rogan and all like the big, Rich Roll. He's been on the big podcast, but he came on ours. And reading the book, it's like, oh fuck, if I tape my mouth, I'm gonna get a higher quality of sleep.
Right. If I tape my mouth while I sleep, right? We're not just talking
while
about
I'm sleeping.
walking through the whole day with tape.
While I sleep. So it's just another example of things that we've learned from the show that has enhanced our own lives and our relationships with other people and ourselves. And it's just a nonstop experiment. And completely with each other all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one, I don't know if I'd be able to, I don't know what it'd be like. Obviously, I don't know what it's like to do a podcast on my own, but I don't know if I'd want to be honest with you. No, I'm serious. No, I'm serious, because it's like, we have a yin and yang that really flows. We also have a yin and a yin that works together, a yin and a yang and a yang. You know what I mean? We kind of are able to make it all work all the time. Like whatever gaps I have in my thinking, or gaps I have in my being, or the things that I fuck up with on the show, like John is always there to pick up the slack or fill in that gap.
Vice versa.
Yeah. And it's been, and to have that kind of relationship with someone is just, I thank you, John. I love you. It's been so nice to be able to do this. And I can't wait to see, as we're really starting to grow now, how it's going to just continually bring in more men, bring in more people, help more, have more events and stuff like that, have bigger guests, and, offer new opportunities and more opportunities for people to become more mindful and meditate. And, we're building a community. I'm sure there'll be more retreats down the road. Just so much exciting things that have come from this unity of two men with the passion to help other men be better men.
Right.
It's awesome.
And, one, thank you for saying that, and everything you said, I firmly can say straight back to you, man. But I also have found that in the past, in working in a ultra masculine space in the Navy SEAL teams, and then before that, being an athlete in high school, working with other men has always kind of been a beating my chest kind of thing. Hey, who can lift the most weight? Who has
competitive?
This competitive nature, and I don't have that with you. I feel as though the two of us work together, and we've set our egos aside, and because of that has allowed me to learn to work with other men in a non-competitive way, and I think that's been phenomenal. And having ideas that we share, having this mutual growth, and even, I don't even want to call them disagreements, but we don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything with the show. I at one point was pushing hard for a book, and Will, he was like, you know what? Let's table that for now. Let's work on the show and
growth
and growth with the show. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And there wasn't any, oh, that motherfucker, he doesn't understand my vision. Like the two of us, we have the same vision. And this, I don't want to make this show just about the two of us patting each other on the back. I'm saying that because you, our listeners, our community, can do that if you haven't already. And we have seen in our Everyman episodes that we've had, they talk about the fact that they've changed the way that they do things, and they work differently with other men. I mean, heck, two of our good friends now, and they've been attendees at multiple retreats, and Randy Bach and David Valadez, they met because of our first Everyman episode that we ever did. David actually happened to listen to that episode. Then Randy and David became friends, not even because of that show. They became friends off to the side. And then one day David is like, yeah, I was listening to your first episode, and there were these two guys. I was like, that one of those guys was Randy, right? And they hadn't even realized that the reason that David had started listening to the show was because of Randy, and they were already friends. So kind of a wild sidetrack. So let's see. Let's get back on track here. Let's see. IG to the podcast. Oh, the live piece. When we decided to go live, man, I tell you that has made me a better speaker. It's made me do my homework because I don't want to come across as an ass.
Yeah.
We still have our raw, uncut, and unapologetic stumbles, but we do our homework, and it's made us both better speakers. I've seen growth in Will, and I hope that he's seen growth in me.
Oh, for sure.
But that's a testament to challenging yourself, right? If you're listening and you haven't pushed yourself to do something that's uncomfortable, it was uncomfortable. So going from Instagram Live, where I had a few hundred followers. I've since deleted my Instagram account, but I had a few hundred followers. Will had several thousand, but we had people like trickling into the Instagram. And then between the two of us on LinkedIn, we had, like tens of thousands, 20, 30, 40, 50,000. And, that we would have at points, we had 100 plus listeners or tuning in live, and then thousands would tune in over time. And that the anxiety level that bumped up, but it was a good thing. It made us uncomfortable, and we pushed ourselves to do that proverbial get comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot. I really I felt like I was also back on stage. Yeah. Going live. Curtains go up, and you just got to, you just got to. You just know, you're prepared, you practice, you rehearsed, you just right. You just go jump on. And one thing I've also learned that really I think has helped me be better in a live, organic, very active space, because we don't know what's going to happen. We talked about some glitches that we've had, and there's going to be more glitches in the future, but it's just but that's what we built into the show, because what we've seen as we've gone live, it forced the natural authenticity and vulnerability immediately, right? And authenticity is the highest ranking emotion that people are tuned to, so it really helps our show really go. But I've been teaching in New York, for a long time on my feet, in person as well. So it's a different format, or we're on a screen. We have technology going on, I'm not used to also talking kind of, structured in some ways, but also off the top of my head based on my experience or based on my homework. And, I definitely, and it's changed a lot, it's definitely helped me become a better speaker. I'm a better reader now. I've slowed down considerably when I speak typically. I'm also able to, just being a host, asking better questions, letting go of my expectations of what the podcast should look like. We have no idea where it's going to fucking go. Sometimes we just have no idea.
These ones.
Yeah. Especially with these, but it's but also coming back to what really helps us, the show, is just how are we adding value to our community? How we, how is this going to help other men, other people that are going to be tuning in, listening, and just having the heart of the show being about helping other people. It just makes all that stuff go away. And also knowing every time I show up authentically, there's a natural forgiveness that kind of happens in that space, because you allow others to be who they are, and human beings are just fundamentally flawed. We all are. We kind of maybe access that, that common humanity that I've said so much since I've done the Stanford work. And that's what we're doing. We're just moving through the common humanity, and just living in our own common humanity, but also living in a tandem common humanity, if you will, rallying around, how we can help people, how we can help men with this information.
So two things there. One, the compassion piece at Stanford that you mentioned, that's at the Center of the Center for Compassion and Altruistic Research and Education, CCARE, at Stanford, which was founded by Jim Doty, one of our guests. Will never would have gone to CCARE if we hadn't had Jim Doty and read his book.
Right.
if we hadn't had Jim Doty on the show and read his book.
Yeah.
So, the show has changed us. The guests have
Yeah.
changed us.
Right.
But we also want to let you as the audience know that you have changed us and you've
Yeah.
changed our show. For example, you guys provide feedback. You could provide reviews. We've got, friends who are listeners who tell us, hey, maybe you guys need to change the volume settings. Maybe you guys need to tie some artificial intelligence in. And then we also have feedback that is friendly, but it's also a little funny to hear. It's like people were telling me initially, and I was still in the Navy, right? I was not allowed to grow a beard. And they're like, John, if you're doing a show on masculinity and men, you need to have a beard. and then people, Will was, what is Dr. Shauna Springer calls your beard demonstrative masculinity.
Yeah.
And she compliments your beard, but then there's other people like, Will, we would love to see you with no beard. Or all sorts of craziness that you don't even think about, right? Like the background needs to change, or the picture in your office is a little off center. It's like the craziest things. But more importantly, we've started to embrace the feedback from you all, both the positive and the negative. And I think we're really growing as podcasters, but also as people because of you all. You all, our audience, our community.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
Yeah. Let's talk, Will, if you would. I don't think we did grounding practices initially in the show when we were on. Go ahead.
No. I remember, like, 'cause I was like, hey, why don't we? I don't know why I thought this, but I remember it was early. I think it was not on the Instagram Lives, but then we quickly or shortly after we went into a podcast format. I was like, why don't we do? There's two things I was asking. I was like, why don't we do a grounding practice? Just as a teaching moment, for our community. But then also I tried to do, hey, the 1 minute mindful moment of the week, if you remember.
Yeah, that's right.
And we did that a couple times. Yeah, we did a couple times. And then it was getting too long, and you're just like, I think we just got to get right to the guest or do this or that. So we lost that, which is fine. I totally agree with it. But then grounding practice is like, that's changed as well. Like we thought it was taking too long and we were losing people's interest. And, us being math nerds, both, I have a science background, John has a math background, which, overlaps very well, because we both had to be heavily educated in math. We start now we have after
analytics,
5, and we start to look at the analytics, and we're seeing like this massive drop off in the beginning because we have a long intro. We have fucking announcements that run for 4 minutes sometimes, whatever. And then the breathing practice has gone for 4. By the time we get to the show, it's 12 minutes to get to the content of the topic. So we cut all that down. So we have a 1 breath breathing practice now. But also what we've done in order to give people the opportunity to practice, we have, and we just need to add more, I think, John, as well. We have different breathing practices on our feed, the Men Talking Mindfulness feed, that you can get to know, practice, and continually come back to. So,
with that, also an exciting announcement, but tied to what Will just said is we partnered with mindful.org. And their podcast, the 12-minute podcast, the 12-minute meditation, and some of our meditations that we've done for our show are going to go on there. And then we're also going to be guest writers for mindful.org and Mindful Magazine, which is super exciting. And those are other things that we're doing to grow the show, but also to grow, more importantly, the influence of the show, and then potentially point our audience toward Mindful Magazine so they can continue to grow, and vice versa, point the audience of Mindful Magazine at the show so they can continue to grow there. So it's pretty wild, all the things that are happening.
And they looked at us, if I may, because we're in the men's space, and that's one thing that's kind of the gift of the show is we know, men out there were suffering terribly we can look at the suicide rates compared to men and women. It's like 4 times greater for men, or if not approaching 5. So men are really taking a beating right now. And this is like where our Men Talking Mindfulness is kind of an oasis for, to just be like, oh, hey, it's okay to be a man, number one, but it's also, I could be actually a 21st century man or a better man by becoming more mindful, just by calming down, and understanding what it means to calm down and why it's important to calm down, and then also living from a more calm experience. So we're getting these phone calls from, different organizations because of the work that we're doing with men. So we thank everyone that's listening out there for that, because you gave us the ability to do that. And, and to find our voices, and, to the feedback that John was talking about earlier. But it's nice that we're being recognized, and then we're expanding our reach. Yeah, go for it.
That was also through a guest. And if you're watching, you may see me moving around. Elaine Smokler, who's been on the show twice, wants to talk about grief and wants to talk about end of life prep and mindfulness tied into that. So, again, the guests have helped us, and we've been helping the show. Speaking about guests, and real quick, also talking about glitches. I'm probably going to have to switch to my headphones as I charge my computer here.
No problem.
But it may sound like crap for a little bit, but I'm going to charge it, and then I'll put my regular mic back on. So, Will, take it away. Let's talk about some of our favorite episodes and why those were some of our favorite episodes, if you would.
Yeah, we've had so many great guests. Yeah, I mean, John has a list here, and my list is very similar to his. But one that I've just saw today, and I sent John the picture, and he didn't recognize the guy. So we had Dr. Rob Kelly on the show twice, right? And one was about addiction, and the other one was about trauma. And he was like, as far as his personality and what he brings to any place that he's in, is like a level of Jim Doty that we just had on the show too. Like, unbelievable what Dr. Rob Kelly's doing out there, with Rob with 2 B's, by the way. He makes his anyway. He has a Netflix series coming out. I love the guy because comes from Manchester. I love that accent. We had really good episodes with him. I mean, James Ness, all of our like Stephen Kotler was fun. James Doty, we just had a blast with him, where I basically call him an asshole on the podcast.
Oh my gosh!
In our latest episode. Yeah, I mean, it was funny.
With Kotler, he was like, I think we asked him right off the bat before he came on the actual show, kind of the talk before. And we're like, hey man, how's it going? He's like, oh, I just snorted 3 lines of Coke. I'm doing great.
Oh my God.
He was just kidding. But then we also just had James Doty on. And right before the show, he was talking about how somebody was offended by his use of the F word in the beginning of his book, which, hey, I can understand at times, but at the same time, hey, that he's writing a book and he's really trying to drive home a point. But she was more offended by that than his use of Coke in the first book, Into the Magic Shop, which I found funny. But yeah, sorry, Stephen Kotler, he cracked me up.
So he was a lot of fun. Some of the ones that I'm just going off the top of my head that really stick out to me. We did Brett Kotler we just had last week, who has been really fun and exciting. It was great bringing in the everyday mindfulness episodes, just to really talk to regular dudes about how mindfulness is working for them and what they're doing with mindfulness and how that's changing their lives. I really like I'm blanking on his name right now. The Gift of Adversity, I thought was a really solid book that really had a nice Marcus deep Aurelius impact on me. Yeah, we had Kristen Neff on, so we had a bunch of compassion work that we've done, which led me to my compassion work that I just did. I'm an ambassador of compassion through Stanford University's applied compassion training, and then just solo episodes that I really enjoyed. The one we talked about on politics, I think is very applicable right now, which is kind of fun, and we did it in the right way, in a delicate way, but also this is our fucking thoughts around it. I liked what we did with Dr. Clark Chilson. We talked about religion, breaking that religion and mindfulness kind of thing down. And just a lot of, and then the ones that like our guest just fucking drops off, right, and then we're left with like no guests, so the topic's out the window, and we like come up with something on the fly. We've had that happen a couple times.
We've had
so
that happen a couple times, and that was actually the one with oh shoot, I'm forgetting the men's doctor.
Jed Diamond.
No.
Brandis, Judson Brandeis.
Yeah, Judson Brandeis. When he was, that was our screw up. I'd screwed up the schedule, I screwed up the calendar, and we did a whole episode on Embrace the Suck. How's this sound, by the way?
Oh yeah. You're good, man. You sound good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we at Embrace the Suck episode, we actually got messages about it. Hey, I actually needed to hear that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I have struggled with my temper, always have. We've had episodes on anger, our inner rage. Those have been really good. I agree. The Everyman episodes have been great. Both episodes with Jim Doty, freaking hysterical, but also just so much knowledge packed into that one. Each of those episodes. We had Elise Michaels on at the end of last season, and
porn addiction,
and it was about a porn addiction, yes, but we also ended up talking about how to better relate to our partners, right? And she was messing with me about, oh, John's over there taking notes.
Yeah,
she was hysterical. Let's see. Some ones that are really important to me that weren't really funny or anything, but they really were important were dealing with imposter syndrome, dealing with bullying. I've got 3 young kids, 7, 5, and 3, and my 7-year-old is already starting to experience bullying. And then body image. I've always I've always struggled with body image, so doing that, and then some with the less serious tones. We did one that was the season finale of one of our seasons where you and I jammed to the soundtrack of Captain Underpants, the cartoon movie, where it's like, dude, I love you, bro, I love you. Like, it was freaking hysterical, like off the wall. Like, I never would have done that 10 years ago. If somebody said that I was going to go live on the air, quote unquote, and play some music, specifically Captain Underpants music to a show, I would have said, no way, man, you're smoking crack.
Yeah, we did an episode also about being silly and ridiculous or something like that, or having fun, which is really wild. Yeah, you really let loose. We both let loose on that one. It was
danced a little bit on that.
We danced. I was like, we were doing all sorts of fun and crazy stuff. Like that was a lot of fun. And one thing, having those guys on the Holistic Life Foundation.
Oh yeah.
And their book, great. They opened season 6, I believe. It's just a blessing to, like I kind of mentioned way earlier, that we have this platform that we can just have great conversations with great people that are doing great work in the world, so we can, as we grow our audience, around who we are and what we stand for, and our beliefs and what we're trying to achieve, obviously are attracting and keeping our community growing and attached. And it's just I don't know. It's just I've been waiting. This is, I don't know if I've ever said this in the show before, but I remember I sat in therapy for years and years and years, and I didn't know. I remember I was like doing what I wanted to do as far as like helping people. I was teaching meditation. I was doing some corporate work. This goes back like, oh my God, like 2014, 15. Teaching a lot of yoga classes. I was actually doing retreats, like, having a lot of fun doing like 3 or 4 retreats a year, like, internationally, as well as, in the States, in New York City or in New York State. And I remember saying to my therapist, I was like, I don't know what the end game is going to be. Like, I don't know what my final, thing is be. Like, I mean, it's just like, I don't know what it is. And this came along, and it is, thank you, John. I'm so blessed that we're continuing to do this and we have the passion to keep driving forward. But it just gives me the space, because it was nice to go to teach at a yoga class and, and help people and see them like relax in Shavasana, or like, go through a difficult time, or maybe they have an emotional experience and kind of break out in tears because they're releasing something that's very powerful and that might have been with them for a while, and maybe it could be potentially gone forever and they could be just on a different path. Like I love that about the yoga class, but like when I'm teaching our class, like 75% of the class is like inhale, exhale, right, left, like that kind of stuff. So that's that's what I'm speaking to there. And here we are, with the podcast, like we have obviously a focused topic that we're working with, but then it could just flow. Like I could bring in so many of my different experiences. I could bring up, so many of the different, I could create, continually creating. And that's why I left. Like, and what was really important for me when I left that corporate job, the only thing I didn't know where acting was going to take me, but I knew it would take me in a direction of living a creative life. And I've never stopped living that creative vein. Mm-hmm. And by living a creative life, but also attaching my own creativity to a higher purpose of helping other people, here we are. Men Talking Mindfulness. We're in season 9 now, which blows my mind.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely blows my mind too. And I love the vision there, right? Helping other people through creating. Again, we just had Jim Doty on, and toward the end of the episode, he said, we were talking about manifesting and the power of manifesting, and how manifesting can be more powerful if you're doing it for bigger reasons than yourself. And he spoke about this one young lady who was struggling to get into medical school, and then she did manifest it to, or rather so that she could help other people, rather than manifesting it so that she could be a doctor or so that she could be successful in her parents' eyes, or anything like that. She was like, you know what? I want to help other people. This is how I'm going to do it. And in doing so, she was able to relax and do better on her medical school entrance exams and all these other things. And now she's a successful, she's in her, I think he said psychiatry, or maybe psychology internship, one or the other. Anyway, was a psychiatry, I think.
Psychiatry, yes. That's what
so medical school to become the psychiatrist. Okay, so the reason I even mentioned that is he also talked about, in today's younger generations, if you ask people what they want to do, in the top 5, it's something like, I want to be an influencer, I want to be
billionaire,
a billionaire with a B, not a millionaire.
Not even millionaire anymore.
I want to be a celebrity athlete, a celebrity, or some other one. But they're all about them. Those things are all about them, me, right? And that is not what the show is about. Yes, we want to grow the show, but it's not because John wants to be famous or Will wants to be famous. As a matter of fact, that's the last thing I would ever wish on myself or on anybody else. Actually, that's the second to last thing. I would hate for anybody to be a politician at the highest levels. That has got to be the worst job on the planet. Anyhow, I digress. But with that, we were like, okay, we want to help people. Let's come up with a vision and a mission, right? We've had a lot of fun with the spontaneity in the kind of the early phases. But then we wanted to do some clarity. We wanted to develop some clarity. And Will's like, you know what? Let's do a summit. And we actually had a summit in New York City at his apartments. Myself, Will, and then our production manager, David Valadez, who I mentioned before, he originally came to one of our retreats, has now become a really good friend and a supporter of the show, and our production manager. And he's been a guest on the show as well, on our divorce episode, which was really powerful. And that episode is actually going to go in mindful.org soon. But in that, we developed a vision and a mission. And I'll read the vision, and then Will, I'll throw it over to you to read the mission.
Yeah, man.
So our vision, as it stands now, as of January of this year, after the summit that we had in New York, is Men Talking Mindfulness is dedicated to empowering men to embrace their true selves with bravery and authenticity. We want to guide them on a journey of continual learning, developing self-love, and meaningful living. We work to inspire men to lead lives that they can look back on with pride and to create legacies that align with their deepest values. We are committed to cultivating a space where vulnerability is strength, being yourself is the norm, and where every man can unleash their potential to live a life of exceptional impact and fulfillment.
Wow. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Every time I hear
crazy?
that, I'm like, God damn.
Chill
I know. Every
bumps.
time I hear it, I'm like, fuck. Yeah, I know. I get chills. Like, God damn. And it's happening. It really is happening. And please, if anybody is feeling that vision already, please let us know. I mean, because one thing that really keeps the show going are your inspirational comments that you leave out there for us. So the mission of Men Talking Mindfulness aims to empower men's personal and emotional growth through mindfulness. We offer engaging content and practical tools in a supportive community, guiding men towards a balanced, mindful, and fulfilling life. So that's what we're doing, and it's a lot of fun. Yes. What's I can even bring up the schedule. So what do we got? Also what I'll say, John, I'm gonna throw this in here right now. If you do want to help us, like, hey, we have a sponsorship page. You want to sponsor the show, it's as high as $5,000, as little as $65. We'd love your sponsorship. We can give you a little, depending on the level of sponsorship that you would like to give to the show. We give you a certain, you're in our show notes, we'll give you a shout out in the show, or, if you're at that highest level of 5,000, we'll actually give you a little mini episode on your own. But we can really support it. Like, if you want to support that vision, or support our mission, please sponsor the show. You can head to mentalkingmindfulness.com/sponsor and to sponsor the show, keep us on the air.
There's also something new, and Will, I know I messaged you about this on Slack, but I don't know that it's really hit home yet. We've also got, rather than subscribing to the show, now you can do listener support. And if you are a fan of the show and maybe sponsoring isn't within your budget, or maybe it's just not what you want to do, you can just do listener support. Remember the old PBS telethons that they used to have, where it was listener support? Well, that's what this show is, right? We don't have we do have the sponsors now, which is great, but we don't have this massive budget. But if you want to sponsor the show outside of being an official sponsor, you can support us through the links are in the show notes. Through listener support, $4 a month, $10 a month, whatever you feel is appropriate, you can throw that at us, and we will put that towards production of the show and that type of thing. You can also subscribe to our Substack, which we recently started. So check that out. It's Substack.com or mentalkingmindfulness.com/Substack. That's how you can get there, and you can subscribe there too. But that's all for you all, right? That Substack, it's articles about our episodes, it's articles about insights that we've found, tools, tricks, tips that we found that we're sharing with you. So that shows, hopefully, to you all how important you all as our community are to us, right? We want to share these tools with you all. Again, it's not so that we can be billionaires, because that's certainly, again, I would never wish that on anybody. Like Jim said, more money, more problems, right? That's not something that I wish. But I want to empower our listeners, and that's through listening to the show, watching the show, and through reading our Substack. So check that out.
Yeah. Thanks for supporting us, everybody, or even just simply supporting us. Every time you hear the show, just share it on your social, or send it to a few friends of yours that you think it can be helpful. That's a great way to do that as well. We have we have a whole season coming up. I don't even know, we should run through all. I'm not going to run through all of them, but we have I think we're going to get Michael Easter on the show with his book Scarcity Brain. I think he's coming on. We're going to be talking about perfectionism and perfection trap. Jay Fields is coming back on the show, talking about embodying mindfulness. She taught us a lot about emotional stability last time. She's going to come back on the show as well, because that's a huge ranking episode for us. So about emotional. emotional stability and understanding and creating more emotional literacy for, because I can't believe how ignorant a lot of men, and I was too, and I still am, to the whole spectrum of emotions that we experience. Right. And you got to name it to tame it, and if you can't name it to tame it, then that you're not, then that is that emotion is taming you and running you wild. Yeah.
Real quick, while you said that,
yeah,
kind of off topic but related. We've talked about the show being for men, right? But in typical male fashion, many of us cannot name these emotions. And maybe as a woman, you can help men understand what emotions they're feeling so men can tame them. But also as a parent, I've got a little boy, and he is very expressive in his emotions, but when I ask him, hey, what is it that you're feeling? He doesn't know how to express that. Now, granted, he's only 5, or rather, he knows how to express it, but he doesn't know how to tame it or name it to tame it. So just this morning, he was playing with a toy VW van, and he was doing something with it. And I said, hey, man, hey, buddy, are you getting frustrated? He said, no, I'm mad. I said, well, let me explain to you frustration and versus getting mad. And then at the end, he was like, yes, I'm not mad. I'm frustrated. And, that's something that's important as a parent, right? Maybe you're a woman listener, right, who has little boys. Maybe you're a wife. Maybe you're, a daughter of a man, and you need to listen to understand the man's perspective on being a father, because that's a complicated thing as well. So there's lots of reasons to listen, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. Bottom line is we appreciate you all as our audience, as our community. So that's all I got, Will. What about you, man? Any last closing comments?
No, I just want to give a big thank you to you, John, for, no, really, but then also to our community and everybody that supported us, everybody that has sponsored us so far, all you sponsors that are going to eventually, we appreciate that. Please give us feedback. Like, I think one thing that you can really help us to do, and you can send an email to info@mentalkingmindfulness.com, is like, what topics do you want to hear about? It's okay if you've already heard it before, because there's always, like, we've talked about, I'm looking on our schedule, John, so like the 4th time we're going to talk about anger.
Yeah.
We talk about rage.
Procrastination twice.
Right.
Yeah. We speak often about similar or even sometimes the exact same topic, because people need to hear other aspects of their angles. So
other angles. Yeah. So, we invite you to please help us inform more of the show by saying, like, asking us to bring a topic on to the show, or a particular writer or a book that we can break down. Because, what I love, another thing I love about the show, it's like, we can create, mindfulness is just another way of creating awareness in your life, and we want to create awareness that help people to live help healthier and more harmonious lives, and be more courageous, like we kind of talked about in our vision and our mission statement. So if you attune to that, maybe just put your head around it. It's like, hey, how can I help the show? And sometimes, again, just helping the show is just sharing the show and getting more people involved, because we also have, one thing I'll say is, our big mission is having million men become more mindful. And it's a heavy lift, but it's not. John and I are obviously the genesis of making this happen, but it's going to take a lot of men and a lot of people getting involved in order to get to 1 million men. And you can start doing that right now by just sharing, liking, speaking to others. We have merch store as well, if you want to support us that way and get some Men Talking Mindfulness merch out there. So people are like, what the fuck is Men Talking Mindfulness? Be like, oh, dude, it's these 2 great fucking dudes. I have a podcast, and, anyway, we'd appreciate that. So I think that's all I really got, John. Just man. A big thanks and big gratitude for everybody out there.
That's right. That's what this show is for. This particular episode is to really drive home and express our gratitude. Yes, it's our origin story, but it's also our opportunity to say thank you.
That's true.
Thank you to one another. Will, I definitely want to express gratitude to you, my brother. Thank you so much for who you are and what you do. And again, to our audience, I don't want to beat this dead horse, but I am going to one more time. Thank you guys for who you are and what you do. That said, until next time, take care, everyone. Peace.
Peace, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.